Hello everybody, Nicholas Snow here. You're watching PromoHomo.TV, and coming up I have a wonderful interview with Mark S. King about his new anthology, My Fabulous Disease, Chronicles of a Gay Survivor. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. This broadcast is going out live on September 11th, 2023. So I really want to acknowledge that this is a very important date in the world history, and I just want to send love and light to anybody who's experiencing a loss today and remembering losses from the 9/11 terrorist attack. So starting on a little bit of a somber note. However, I'm launching the Hopefulsexual educational campaign right now, and all of the stars aligned today, and so I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you just a little bit about it, all right? So coming out isn't just for LGBTQ people anymore. As a matter of fact, everyone that you know is probably a hopeful sexual. I understand that most Fox News viewers are hopeful sexuals. Most Republicans are hopeful sexuals. The people that you go to church with, they are hopeful sexuals. There are a few people who are not hopeful sexuals. And I was just thinking about the barriers to authentic human connection, and how there's a lot of shame and stigma around sexuality in general. It doesn't matter whose sexuality it is. There's a lot of shame and stigma around it. So I thought, well, I'm going to create an educational campaign, and I'm going to start it out with a line of merchandise. So the final design is on your screen, and there's a simpler design, as you can see right here. It's just very basic. But I'm going to just show you how easy it is. So when you go to Hopefulsexual.com, it takes you to the Amazon store, and this is an official unboxing. I have not opened this because the design just became available on Saturday, all right? So this is how simple it is. You go to Hopefulsexual.com, and you pick out, which takes you to my Amazon store, and you pick out the design that you want, and this is a blue long sleeve shirt. It's extra large because it will fit me very well when it is washed. And then I also have the same thing in black. And I like the final design, which looks like you just got stamped with a red stamp of ink stamp that you are hopeful sexual. I kind of really like that. But I wore this basic design to an event Saturday night, and I got so many comments on it, and I look forward to wearing it to Walmart and all sorts of other places. So that's the news about the Hopeful Sexual campaign, and I invite you to check it out. And I'm going to now cue up a graphic about my guest who's coming up, Mark S. King, because he's got this really wonderful book. Now, I mentioned that this is September 11th, 2023. If you are seeing this in the Palm Springs area before September 13th, 2023, you are in luck, because Mark will be in town, and there will be a special book event at the Mizell Center here in Palm Springs I'm the master of ceremonies, and we have several people that are going to be participating in that particular event, reading from Mark's book, and then Mark is going to read from the book himself. And I think it's going to be a really powerful event. And of course, Mark is on a book tour and he's updating his appearances at his website. And if you go to myfabulousdisease.com, at any time you can find out what he's up to. If you happen to see this after the 13th or you don't live in the Coachella Valley. So I'm going to be back with an exclusive interview with Mark S. King after this.
I have found a place out of time and space.
I want my queer TV. Hi, I'm Drew Carey. I want my queer TV. We want our queer TV.
I am Christina Applegate, and I want my queer TV.
I am Katie Seagal, and you are watching Tinseltown's Queer from the Playboy Mansion. I mean, how cool is that?
It's very cool.
We're in the Playboy Mansion.
Well, welcome.
So, My Fabulous Disease, Chronicles of a Gay Survivor, is an anthology spanning 4 decades. It's sometimes emotional, biting, and hilarious. And I believe that this was written by Greg Louganis, this forward. But Greg writes, "The sum of these chronicles is a manifesto of survival, but they also are a portrait of a man giggling through a graveyard. There is a sense of a joyful gratitude that permeates even the darkest chapters, a through line of cheeky optimism that makes the tragedy bearable and the humor uproarious. My Fabulous Disease, Chronicles of a Gay Survivor, divulges King's intimate triumphs and misfires, along with glimpses of his southern family coming to terms with a gay son, his harrowing drug addiction and eventual recovery, and a lifetime spent skating on the cracked ice of HIV." What a metaphor, skating on the cracked ice of HIV. That's really intense. So to talk about his book, let's welcome Mark S. King. I'm trying to do it. Oh, there we go. Hi, Mark.
Hi, here I am.
There you are. I found you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. You know, I'm still trying to digest Hopefulsexual. I think you might be onto something here, Nicholas. I think you have bridged East meets West. Is this going to finally bring us all together, that we all just want to get laid and we're hoping for it? I'm married and I'm hoping for it.
Well, I agree. And, on the surface, it is kind of fun. It's like, oh, maybe you're out to get laid, but maybe you're out to have the sort of human connection that is authentic and playful and real, that could result in all sorts of adventures.
Exactly. And exactly. There's something cheeky and sweet about it, and a little sexy.
Well, I have worn this shirt out, and I look forward to wearing it out all the time, and I'll report back to you on how it goes. But
I think I'm going to get the XXL size 2 just to wear as a night shirt.
Oh, well, that's fun. Well, they have tank tops, t-shirts, V-necks, hoodies, you name it. It's there. Well, thank you for the extra information about that. One of my loyal viewers and actually an associate producer of the show, Lance Druckerman, is watching, and he's happy to see me return. But I'm happy to see you, Mark, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in about 48 hours. We'll actually be together on a stage.
Yes,
at the Mizell Center, September 13th at the Mizell Center. The reception begins at 6. So, how long have you been living with HIV?
We're coming up on 40 years. I tested positive in 1985, just a couple of weeks after the test came out, became publicly available. I figure I was probably living with the virus since 1981, which means we've, passed that marker. And yeah, that long.
So you learned you were HIV positive at a time when everyone believed it was a death sentence.
Yes, we had a lot of evidence to support that belief. I was living in West Hollywood, California, one of the epicenters of the epidemic. And certainly by the time I tested positive, we had already heard the early stuff, right? You started to hear the whispers or see bits and pieces on the news. And, then the gay cancer and all of the other terms it was before we settled on the viral definition. And I think that I separated out a lot. I think that early on, even in West Hollywood as a gay man, I thought to myself, oh, it must happen to other people. And by that, I meant like other sleazy people, people into weird things. It's so funny. I guess that's why I have patience with people who will stigmatize us or, because it's fear-based. I was afraid. And so I try to think of ways why it couldn't happen to me. Oh, maybe they're doing, weird things. Make no mention of the fact that I was 24 years old and enjoying my youth in West Hollywood. But yeah, I separated out too. And it quickly became a graveyard in West Hollywood. And I don't know, I mean, so much has been said and written about those times. I've kind of put it into perspective. I think my writing over all of these years has helped. That's my therapy. And it was, it was rough and it was beautiful. What we did was beautiful. Our response was beautiful.
That's been such a huge thing in your life and in many, but I just wanted to sort of go to that moment in time when that became part of your reality. But I'd like to backtrack about your Southern upbringing and what that was like, and your, I imagine, struggle to find a place in the world that ultimately was West Hollywood at one point in your journey.
And West Hollywood, or a city like it, was my North Star. I knew it when I was young. I knew I needed to get the hell out of here and get someplace, that where I could find my tribe. And I understood that. I heard that can pop open.
Yes.
You're
It's
not
not
promoting
beer.
that drink, are you?
I'm not. It's sparkling
and-
water. I'm 22 years sober, so it's not like.
Oh, good for you. I won't mention my sobriety time, but I'm right there with you. And
Okay.
congratulations. But as anyone who reads the book knows, it was a hard fought sobriety. So at any rate, yes, when I was a kid, when I was just a little thing, a little gay, I knew very young that I was gay. I as soon as I had the vocabulary to identify what I was, I did community theater. So I quickly
did? Oh my God.
Yes,
Young
can you imagine?
homosexual that did community theater.
I know.
I'm so mystified at that.
Okay, thanks. And I was introduced to it by my older gay brother, who also did community theater, but he was 15 years older. So I really looked up to him, and I wanted to do everything he did. And I guess I ended up pretty much fulfilling that one. And so to answer your question, I grew up military. We moved around a lot. My parents had 6 kids, 2 of each, as we like to say. And growing up in the South in Bossier City, Louisiana, it was not a great, comfortable place to be. Not to mention, this was the 70s, right? And I can't believe I'm saying, it's so funny, this book thing and all of that. I suddenly having these flashbacks to, oh shit, I've been around a long time. How old am I? Oh, damn. Time, it's very fleeting, isn't it? At any rate, so I grew up in the South. It was rough. I knew I needed to be somewhere else. But I didn't struggle with my sexuality too much. I figured out fairly soon that I was going to be that I was all right, and I just needed to surround myself with people who agreed with that. And that's why I went to, was attracted to community theater and stuff, because I met gay men who were well adjusted and enjoying their lives, and that's what I needed. And then I quickly moved to New Orleans for college, and then Los Angeles.
Well, when I got into music and theater as a young gay boy, I didn't really know I was a young gay boy. It just was a safe place, and it wasn't physical education where I was bullied. It was, and I had some talent, and it was one place in the world where I could get some nurturing of my self-esteem that was, practically non-existent.
And at some point, got a perm. If your introduction is any evidence of that, I did that too in the early.
That's
80s.
not a
Yours
perm.
was more successful than mine.
My hair is naturally that curly when
I beg your pardon.
when I let it grow long and I let it dry wet. It is literally that curly, but
Okay, I beg your pardon. Mine wasn't.
okay. Well, I love it that in your life you've been willing to have hair adventures,
Yes, yes,
and that
indeed.
you still have hair, or that we still have hair.
I
That's a good
still
thing.
have hair. I'm holding on to it selfishly. I haven't changed my hairstyle in 40 years. I'm going to die with this hairstyle. I'm like Liza. This is it. This will always be it. As long as they keep making hairspray and hair products, this is it.
And what about the beard? Does it come and go?
Yeah, it does come and go. I'm scared to shave it off because I'm afraid to see how much I've aged under here. But the beard does benefit from a little of the Just for Men stuff, type stuff. I do dye my beard. I don't like the gray that's in it, or all the gray that's in it. But I think I get away with it, right?
You look great.
I need to stop telling people what I dye and what I inflate and what I, have injected, right? It's kind of, messes up the purpose of having work done.
Just show up owning your fabulosity.
Right.
Lance is appreciative of you chatting about his own era. He's been paused since 1996. So I became HIV positive in 2007 through a rare slip in my safer sex behavior, of course, fully armed with the knowledge to protect myself. I was sober at the time. In retrospect, I realized that part of what contributed to me choosing to have unsafe sex was depression, loneliness, isolation. None of those needed to exist for me to have made that decision in a moment of passion. And of course, it's been 15 years or more since that happened. And one of the groups that's active not only in the Coachella Valley, but it was founded in San Francisco by Tez Anderson, is Let's Kick Ass, which
Right.
is for long-term survivors. And I don't count myself as a long-term survivor, really. I think of long-term survivors as people like you who found out they were living with HIV. I'm going to correct myself in a moment because there's many ways to identify a survivor. All of us who went through the epidemic survived it. All of us who went through the epidemic have trauma that will always be part of our existence. But I just acknowledge that people who became aware of their HIV status before it was a manageable illness, when it was a death sentence, that's a very different experience.
I want to unpack that a little bit, and if I may, and that is to say, first of all, the whole word survivor. You're right; it's kind of up for interpretation, right? And I hate for us to create a hierarchy of like, who are the elder statesmen, who had it longer, how many friends did you lose, all of those sorts of stats, when it's a very human thing to be afraid and to feel as if you're facing something that will cut your life short. I've lived a long time, and I have had serious illnesses. I've been in car accidents. I've had guns pointed in my direction. I like all of us, I am a survivor of life itself. And I say that because we tend to become very kind of self-centered in terms of HIV and this great tragedy that happened to our generation, you and I. And it's certainly worth um, uh, preserving that history and talking about it and talking about our collective trauma, all of those things. But it's funny. I'm kind of I'm of two minds about it, because I do want to preserve it, but I think that part of the takeaway from any great tragedy, but when we're talking about ours and AIDS, is that if I didn't develop more empathy for other people, for whatever they're going through, and people watching right now have been through worse than I have. If this didn't help me have more empathy for somebody else, what the hell was it all for? And I say that because that then helps me have empathy for the cancer survivor or the person with domestic violence history, whatever it is, without having to qualify and say, well, this is what I went through. Tragedy isn't a contest, and HIV survival is not a contest. What you went through, Nicholas, regardless of when it was, or under what conditions, was a major life event. And about
remains
which there are
so.
ramifications.
And remains so, yes.
Yes.
Lance corrected himself. He had a typo. He actually became positive for HIV is when he tested in,
No, that is actually
in
correct,
1985.
Yes. The HIV test was released in 1985 in March. And I got my test results. I don't know exactly the day in March. I like to say it was March 15th, the Ides of March. Around that date is when a friend called me, because I had secretly gotten tested in a doctor's office after hours by a friend of mine, because God forbid you do it and it's on your insurance and you lose your insurance and you get fired from the job and the roommate kicks you out. There were so many negative consequences during that time, and not a single medication. So you were really quiet about it if you were going to get tested. But I wanted to know. And so I did, but I did it very kind of, in a clandestine manner.
So how did you end up becoming a leader in the fight against HIV and AIDS with an international profile?
Wow. Luck. I think that what it was, and it's funny because some of the people who have reviewed the book say this, and it's interesting how you put out a collection of your writing over the course of many decades. And it's, of course, not all about HIV. That's one section of the book. There's other sections on love and being gay and family and all of those things. But it's funny, a couple of the reviewers have pulled out threads, kind of common threads that go through. And one of them is this need I had of finding my stage. I was a frustrated performer, right? The musical theater growing up. I was a frustrated performer. I wanted to feel as if what I did mattered and that I was making an impact, or at least I was moving people, right? Any artist just wants to move people and be a storyteller. And I was in Los Angeles, making TV commercials and doing television when I was in my early 20s. And it was doing okay, but it wasn't my future. And when AIDS came along and I started to work for AIDS organizations, I thought it was the last job I would ever have. And I was in a position where I could speak openly about it. I have a certain shamelessness, Nicholas. And by that, I mean, I would refuse to be ashamed about those things I have, being gay, being HIV positive, being a drug addict or recovery. I refuse to be shamed by those things. And also, I will admit, and it probably comes out in the book, that at some point I thought to myself, well, I guess I'm not going to be on TV for being an actor. I guess I'll be on TV for having HIV. Okay, that works. And there was some of it was a craven lust for the spotlight, and I don't mind admitting that. Because a lot of those of us who grew up LGBTQ are looking for validation in any way we get it. And a lot of us go into performance. We've been performative a lot of our lives. And we're looking for that sort of, is it a shallow validation? Of course it is. In my case, as it turns out, I was also able to write. And that became the skill set that went along with the performer. And I just started writing early. And when I say luck, I kind of mean it. I didn't die. You know, if you live long enough and you can write, you're going to put out a book with 40 years of stuff and people are going to say it's great. You know, and people are going to ask you, how did you become an international, you know, well, I lived and I did, and I just kept doing the thing.
Yeah, but I became aware of you years ago before this book, at which you already had an international profile. Well, I'm glad you're still here, and I'm glad I'm still here as well. So I have a Living Powerfully with HIV memoir that looks at a very focused period of my life for like a 3-year period. Mm-hmm. But I describe my own book as part fourth step inventory in the 12-step world, part 12-step, fourth-step inventory, and part reality show on paper. And I'm wondering, to what extent did you take your own inventory over the years, and to what extent do you feel that shows up in the book?
Oh, it absolutely does. It shows up in that I certainly chronicle a lot of unattractive behaviors on my part. And I don't just mean the self-destructive ones. I mean the, you know, again, the media hunger or the selfishness of being young and pretty, you know, and all of those kind of character traits. I don't mind writing them down. I think I've always thought that people, it's like you can spot it a mile away when you're reading one of these memoirs and people want to tell you, right, you know, on page 4 what all of life's lessons are and all of they've learned, and it's just like, I would rather tell you, show you that I'm a flawed human being doing my best, you know, and because I think that's what I relate to, you know. I am much more attracted to people who are not quite sure, but they're trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, I think that a lot of my character defects and all of that I make fun of it. There's a piece called The Fabulous Wizard of Paz, and it was about the first time I was on a magazine cover. And I was so filled with myself that I went to a Paz social and brought stacks and just kind of set them, set them artfully on the coffee table and, you know, in the front stoop and in the bathroom. And, you know, and the piece just takes it further. It just cranks it up. It's comedy, you know, about my brush with intense fame and how important it is to be kind and gracious to the little people. Like Terry Mace.
Oh, I love that. I can relate to it in so many ways, you know.
Well,
it's
yes,
like,
I mean, nobody gets in front of a camera like you do, Nicholas, or all of those cameras that you have been in front of for decades without, first of all, thinking it's a lot of fun and knowing that you're good at it. And I struggled with that. I struggled with doubts over, am I just arrogant? Am I just a whore, you know, a media whore? You know, maybe, but I'm using it for a really good purpose. You were a wonderful entertainer. You know, you look at the interviews you've done throughout the years, not just back in the day, and you're using a skill set. We all get a skill set. It's not, you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be embarrassed. Don't hide your light under a bushel.
Well, I'm sure you've explored the own why behind your love of the spotlight. I certainly have, and there's lots of commonalities here. And of course, it was the affirmations that we got as young gay boys in a scary environments. But what really solidified my lifelong journey as a multimedia entertainment activist was my time in the early 1980s when people I loved were dying of AIDS. At the same time, I was majoring in communication and recovering from a conservative Republican upbringing.
Oh,
At
wow.
which point I realized that the most powerful thing that I had was my own voice. So I started coming out, I started being a media activist, and I never stopped.
Mhm.
In the early years, though, I believe there was this really sort of sad desperation in my approach and in some of the ways that I showed up because it was fueled by the complete absence of authentic self esteem. But over the
Mhm.
decades of recovery and lots of spiritual work, I think I'm more effective in what I do. And I bet you can relate to everything I just said for yourself.
Yes, of course I can. And but it's funny. I think that's life too. I think that's life and that's maturity. You were young, you had these gifts that you were good at, and you were young and kind of knocking around and maybe getting off on it all, and maybe not seeing any big picture in terms of what does it all mean. I'm just going to have a good time. I'm going to be a bit frivolous. I don't want to put characterizations on your life. I'll speak for myself. I was frivolous, and I think that's just youth. I had to grow up real fast at the age of 24 in West Hollywood, and I would like to think that I would have eventually, but I did a lot faster than I had ever intended to. I talk about the fact that there's these. I think we all want meaning. We're all like, especially you get us into a stage of life, right? That you want to feel as if you've had an impact. You want to feel as if you've helped somebody because we're all on this scary ride, and it's nice when you've helped somebody. I don't know if I was thinking about helping anybody. I just wanted to be on as many cameras as I could find. And because that was my vocation. I was an actor. Um, and that's just maturity. And you know, we, there's these big questions that we have throughout life. Why are we here? What are we doing? What does it all mean? Is there a God? Big stuff. And that you figure you got your whole life to figure out. And at 24 years old, I suddenly had this much time to figure it out. And everything was compressed. And what 24-year-old needs to be facing those questions, along with a community, along with town halls stuffed with other gay men, forced into that sort of existential crisis and search for why, why. And it's funny because we're now getting to an age where people, in the natural progression of things, are facing those same questions. And guess what? I still don't have any answers. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm alive. I don't know why other people that were doing all the right things and were better people than me didn't make it. I stopped trying to figure that one out a long time ago. What I'm left with is, are you making the journey easier for somebody else? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people buy my book. But if I helped a friend along, that's, I think, what we're around for. Oh my gosh, I hope you're writing this down. I hope somebody is needle pointing this shit.
It's being recorded and broadcast live on multiple platforms.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we're good. We're good. And so people who want to buy your book looking for the answers to the meaning of life, well,
Mhm.
you've basically told them don't look for that there. But, I think in all of our experiences, I'm sure that your book is about experience, strength, and hope. I mean, I haven't
Certainly.
read it yet. I look forward to buying it on Wednesday and hearing people read from it.
Look, Nicholas, I might slip you a copy
Oh my goodness.
because you're helping me out. You're helping me out here.
Well,
Okay.
that's very kind of you. Now, for people in the Coachella Valley area who are seeing this interview before Wednesday, September 13th, 2023, Mark will be at the Mizell Center for a book event, and he has assembled local community leaders that are involved in the fight against HIV and AIDS, including Jeff Taylor from HARP, Jax Kelly from Let's Kick Ass Palm Springs, Bella DeBall, who is a huge champion and advocate for those of us living with HIV and AIDS. And I saved one of the names for last because I don't know if you know this, but you and I have Dr. David Morris in common.
Really? It's funny. I know most of the speakers you've just mentioned, fortunately, just through my work. But it'll be fun to see them take on an excerpt from the book and read it and discuss it. It'll be weird to hear other people reading my work. And I look forward to that. I'm glad they are. And yes, Dr. Morris, David, as I get to call him now that he's not my doctor, was my doctor for 20 years in Atlanta and saw me at my worst. And it wasn't the HIV.
In other words, it was the addiction.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. There's the question of why and why we do these things and why we pick up self-destructive behaviors and why I would survive AIDS and get into the 90s when suddenly we could all breathe a little easier and then choose that time to go on a self-destructive path. Was that survivor's guilt? I don't know. But I will say that I think that I felt entitled to a party after.
And
what
you
I
had
been
it.
through.
You had the party.
I did.
Well, so Atlanta's loss was Palm Springs' gain, and Dr.
Yeah.
Morris, who is also my friend, has also been my doctor since he came here.
Now, do
And
you like him? Do you like him
I
as a
love
doctor?
him. I
Yeah.
love him.
Good.
I wouldn't have kept
Good.
him as my doctor for 7 years
Right.
or however long it's been. And look, he's Lance's doctor too. So
Well, he's still got it. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I haven't seen David as often as I would like, but I'll get to see him this week, so I'm excited about that.
in the home stretch of our conversation, you've just had the opportunity to attend a major national HIV and AIDS conference in which there was an event about your book, and I would love to hear from you how it all unfolded and the response that you got. And for people that are unaware of the conference, let them know about that as well.
The United States Conference on HIV and AIDS has been going on for 30 years, and unlike like heavy research, medical-oriented conference, this is one that leans more into community. It'll be your Desert AIDS Project, your local AIDS organizations, plus activists, people living with HIV like myself, public health people. That's the crowd. It's very much kind of like my peeps. This is my family, And we did an event that was structured like the one we're doing in Palm Springs, and with an all-star panel of national AIDS activists reading pieces of it. And you asked me what it was like. Well, I'm still processing because I expected to be lively. There were very funny pieces, and we'll see that in Palm Springs Wednesday night. Some of the pieces are very funny. It's just the way I operate, and some are not, right? And I was expecting it to be entertaining. I guess I didn't expect to feel the weight of the moment, hearing them in their remarks, talking about my impact. It was kind of like Tom Sawyer sneaking into his memorial service, right? His funeral, where I got to hear what this community feels about me and feels about the impact of my work. And it felt so indulgent in a way, but also lovely. It's nice when we know that we're in the right place doing the right thing. So that's what I have to say about it. I can say that if Palm Springs is anything like that event, the audience is going to come away entertained and emotional and happy.
Lance wants to know, can anyone just show up? And Lance, the answer is yes. It is at the Mizell Center, Wednesday, September 13th at 6:30 p.m. is the reception. Wait, is that true? Is it the reception that's at 6:30?
I believe the reception is at 6:30 and the program begins promptly at 7.
Okay, and
The best bookstore in Palm Springs will be selling copies of the book there. And I'm happy to sign it for you. It's one of life's great pleasures.
yes, and best bookstore, by the way, is at 180 East Talkwitz Canyon Way. But the Mizell Center, you can go to mizell.org, but they're on Ramon, just east of Sunrise, on the north side of the street, and there's plenty of parking. I just pulled that out of my head.
That's great.
Is there anything that you would like to add to our conversation that we haven't talked about?
No, I think I think you're good at what you do. You have left no stone unturned. I mean, there will be more to say Wednesday night. So no, I'm grateful for this. I appreciate the other voices in this community. I think I've learned to, this book tour aside, that with maturity, maybe we're not as hungry for the limelight as we are to shine the light on somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what you get to do with this show. So you need to get back in the act, like your friend Lance says. Start doing the shows.
Yes, I am. Well, thank you for actually setting up something I wanted to share with the audience. So I'm coming out with a new show on PromoHomo.TV called The Snowstorm. It can hit at any time. It will be a panel discussion show about the hottest topics of the day. I will have rotating panelists. And on all social media platforms, my live viewers can comment on the platform and I can curate their comments into the show. But one of the things I'm doing with the Snowstorm is I'm going to empower people to connect themselves to a broadcast via video. So someone who's watching the show, imagine you're watching The View or The Talk and you're thinking, well, I have something to add to that conversation. I will be able to allow members of my live audience connect to the broadcast via video and, share their 2 cents or $2 worth. And anyone that is intrigued by that, you need to be able to put yourself in a position where I can notify you when the snowstorm hits. And if you go to PromoHomo.TV/subscribe, you'll learn how to do that. So
can I just congratulate you on something, Nicholas?
yes.
You're good at branding, baby. Good at branding. You got your Hopefulsexual. You got your PromoHomo, and now you have Snowstorm.
The Snowstorm, yes. Well, I like to say, you haven't seen me in person, but I like to say over 6 feet of snow has hit Palm Springs. Because I am over 6 feet tall. I would like to talk about a couple more things. So another reason I got into media is I've realized in retrospect, I have social anxiety. And I can speak to 1,000 people more easily than it is for me to walk across a room and say hello to one person. And I have come to understand that that is a result of the trauma I went through as a kid, through bullying, and I work hard with therapists and other things to overcome that. So one of the ways I've relied on sort of trying to connect with gay men, which is for me has sort of been worthless, are the dating apps. And but one of the things I have always done in that environment is I've disclosed my HIV status. I've always been right up front with it. And so I was wondering if you would share some experience, strength, and hope. It could be rooted in your own experience, but you've been around this movement long enough to know some of the other sort of actions people can take to deal with isolation, loneliness, stigma, and the desire to have authentic connection with others.
And the hardest thing to do is just to pick up the 100-pound phone, right? And regardless of what and of course, COVID has just inflamed inflamed our, we have a crisis of loneliness. Dr. David Fawcett talks very movingly about the crisis of loneliness we have. And we don't make it easy in our gay community for ourselves when we're very much based on outer attributes. It makes it even more us all even more self-conscious. But to answer your question, don't aim. You don't have to feel as if you're aiming high, and that's what gets you nervous in terms of how do I make a lot of friends. They did a research study with psychologists, et cetera, and they discovered that to have a meaningful, satisfying social existence, you need anywhere from 2 to 5 friends, good friends. And I think I have 3. I have 3 good friends that I call up most days for no good reason, just to call them up. Is it hard to do that when you're of a certain age and we're all kind of entrenched in our lives? It is hard to do that. One of my closest friends today is someone I only met a few years ago. And I interviewed him for something, and I just thought he was hilarious. And I had his number, so I started calling him. If you want to make friends at our age, you got to stalk them a little bit. And that's what I did. I just started calling him for no reason. He's like, hello, what do you want? I'm like, I'm just calling to see how you are. It's hard to do that. And it's hard for me, and I'm like outgoing. It's hard to put ourselves out there. And there is a risk involved because there's always rejection, and there may be. But it's a one person at a time thing. Maybe you're just looking for that one, companion, confidant, go to the movie dude, You don't have to sign up for a whole crowd of friends. 1, 2.
Words of wisdom from Mark S. King, whose book is out now, My Fabulous Disease, Chronicles of a Gay Survivor. To follow his adventures, including news of various book appearances that will start popping up progressively as more people become aware of this good work, go to myfabulousdisease.com. And just as a reminder, if you are going to be in the Coachella Valley on Wednesday, September 13th, 2023, I will be the host of a panel in which several people will be reading from Mark's book. It's a free event, and the book will be available for sale with a big thanks to Best Bookstore. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, helping to prepare for this event Wednesday, but to also have this conversation with you. So thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Nicholas, and thank you for your work.
It's my honor and my privilege. Any last comment?
No, I'm wondering whether or not I can get a FedEx package of a Hopefulsexual t-shirt delivered by the time I get to Palm Springs, and I don't think so. But I might just be wearing it at my next book stop.
Oh, that's very kind of you. What size t-shirt do you wear?
Extra large.
I actually will have an extra large t-shirt, not a short sleeve, that will have arrived by Wednesday. So
what color?
Black.
See now it's not good enough. I get the free t-shirt. Now I need to know what color it's in.
This one
black,
would
excellent. It
covers
a multitude of sins.
All right, so you get a Hopefulsexual. I'm going to give you a Hopefulsexual t-shirt, and you're going to give me your book, and
that's right.
I'm going to host this event with you, and it will be a PromoHomo kind of night.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Hang tight, Mark. I'll talk to you in just a minute. So thanks again.
You're welcome.
And for all of you at home, thanks for watching. I'm glad I got back on the air, and I want to thank Mark for inspiring me to do it. If I hadn't booked him on the show, I probably wouldn't have, started my shows this week, but I needed a couple of months to kind of figure out what my next steps would be. And I know one of them is to be at the Mizell Center on Wednesday, and I hope that you're going to join me. Maybe we'll see you there, and hopefully I'll see you here next time.
In a safe place, I got room to breathe. Been a long chase, but at last I'm free. These open woods, I knew I could find peace here. Nothing like the city where I got tired of the running, the catching up. I got hungry for the stunning high mountain tops. So I made some plans, some dreams to catch, to promised lands, to find my path, see the planet from greater heights. I have found a place out of time and space, far from city lights, up on greater heights. See the blue sky, feel the wind that blows, get the rush in, heaven only knows. I'm all alone, still lying far from lonely, on a journey, on a winding road. Got tired of the running, the catching up. I got hungry for the sunny